Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Alice Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, your host, Alice Badler, answers everyday questions with her unpredictable, interactive, spontaneous, and engaging style. You can easily ask your questions, share your thoughts, and join the conversation by calling into the show at Blog Talk Radio. Alice is waiting for you. From the smallest things to the deeply profound, the Ask Alice Show is the place to ask your questions and get real answers. Here's your host, Alice Badler.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited to have you all here with me tonight. It is always a great pleasure to interact with you. And for our callers, please press 1 on your phone to get into the queue if you'd like to talk to me. You've heard my voice. Now I would like to hear yours. And I've been hearing that sometimes there's a few problems for those of you listening via computer. So if you experience anything, just hit the refresh button and you'll be good. And now, my weekly blurb to provoke some thoughts in you. Do I look fat in this dress? I was at a party with a friend, and she asked me this very question. And she really didn't look so good in that particular dress. So, do I tell her the truth? We are already at the party, and there is nothing she can do about it. Or do I lie so she can have a fun night? I chose to tell her she looked great. While thinking about the subject of not telling the truth, it occurred to me that there are so many different kinds of lies, levels of lies. There is the white lie. That's the lie I told, where by telling the truth, we might make someone feel bad, or maybe shaving a few years off our age. And then there's the lie by omission. We ask our partner what they did last night, and they tell us they went out for drinks with their friends, but omit the part where they went to a strip club and got a lap dance. Then there's fabrication, where we might say something about someone that we are not sure is true, and hence we start a rumor about them. How about plagiarism? This can be as big as putting our name on a work that someone else created, to having someone think we made that wonderful cake and us not correcting them. Making a promise we have no intention of keeping. Even exaggerating a story we are telling is a lie. And then there's the big one, deception. That is a bold-faced lie with intent. Included here is stealing, cheating, scamming, etc. I am sure the list goes on. I know people who don't think some of these are lies at all. Omission and white lies top that list. In fact, I've actually met a few people throughout my life who only consider deception a lie. The other things they seem to be able to reconcile in their heads. If something is not the absolute truth, it is then a lie. It is that simple. So if we take into account all of the above, then it would seem that most, if not all people lie, oftentimes without even realizing it. It's just part of human nature. But we all have such a problem with that word. We are taught that if we lie, we are bad. Absolutely, there are certain types of lies that will always be unacceptable to each of us. But am I a bad person because of the lie I told my friend? Can I not be trusted at all? I think not. I made a conscious decision, and I take ownership for that choice. I will not play games with myself and pretend that it was anything else. Maybe, rather than being in denial about what is true about the human condition, we can figure out what our thresholds for lying are, for ourselves and for the people in our lives. What can we live with? What are our deal breakers? So that's what's on my mind tonight. And now, my dear listeners, it's your turn. So feel free to ask a question or make a comment about anything. We want to hear what you have to say. So if you came to the show tonight with a specific question or topic in mind, please feel free to share that with us. And tonight, I have the amazing Ande Lyons standing in as our guest producer again. I am so thrilled to have you with us, Ande. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Alice, for inviting me back to be your guest producer on the Ask Alice show. I'm so thrilled to be joining you once again and your delicious audience this evening. Wow, people are having a lot of thoughts about this topic. You did a beautiful job with your monologue. In fact, we had somebody who left a message quickly and had to hang up and run. They just said, I have to let Alice know this. Can you get this to her, Ande? And I said, absolutely. And it's Alana.
Okay.
And do you mind? May I share this with you?
Alana. Yes. Actually, I wish she didn't have to run. I love Alana. What was her question?
Oh, my gosh. She said, some people feel the need to lie because they have an obsession, and it gets to the point where they don't even know they're lying because it becomes a habit, like automatically brushing your teeth in the morning. At what point does a lie turn into a truth?
That's a good question.
Wow.
Well, it's interesting because what she just described is actually a combination of two different types of liars that really look a lot alike. There's the compulsive liar, and I'm sure we've all run into one of those, and they actually do lie out of habit. It's a habit. And they probably got that habit because they grew up in an environment where they felt the need to lie all the time. So they really can't help themselves. These are people with very low self-esteem, but they know they're lying. And then we have the pathological liar. And they seem to be a compulsive liar because they're very much alike. But the difference is that a pathological liar actually has a mental disease. They might be a narcissist, or maybe they have personality disorder, something like that. And the difference, even though they look and feel like a compulsive liar, is that they are master manipulators. They lie to get what they want. And they actually do start to believe their own lies. And that does become their reality and their truth. So that was like an amazing point that Alana made. But what's really kind of interesting about both these type of liars is that they lie about everything and anything. I mean, they'll lie about what they had for dinner. They'll lie about, what they did yesterday. They golfed, and they'll tell you they went fishing. So, I'll tell you what, if you ever run into one of those, I would take to the hills on that. That was a great question. Thank you, Alana, wherever you are.
It really was, because obviously when someone's lying that much, they're building a lot of mistrust. People will probably pick up on it intuitively. And that's very sad, too. Alice, we have several callers on the line.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to bring in Deanna.
Well, hi, Deanna. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Alice. It's Dina. How are you?
Hi, Dee. How are you? Hi, sweetheart. How you doing?
Great. I'm doing great. Wow, what a great subject this is. This lying.
Thank you.
I wonder, sometimes, especially if like you're in a group. I was just thinking of a situation, and how because I have a pretty good lie guard. You can kind of tell. And so you're sitting in a group, and I had this, we were all sitting around the fire pit, and we have a big group here. I live in a condominium complex. So there's a lot of different personalities and a lot of, different people. We were sitting down there one night, and it was actually a friend of mine that just all of a sudden came out with this question. and she asked, and there was like all these people around, and she said, "Do you think I am a controlling friend?" Well, someone's going to ask me a question straight out. It's not that I ever thought about it or, thought about it in my mind. It was just like one of those questions that came out of the blue. And the other friend behind her was waving me like, "Don't answer that." So I had to kind of regroup because, when someone asks you a direct question and they're being serious about it, you want to answer them honestly. So when she did that, I kind of got a little tight-lipped and had to rethink that whole thing. And so it was kind of difficult, It was like one of those situations. It wasn't a very appropriate area to ask that question because now everybody's listening.
Yeah, it's interesting she would ask that there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was going through some things that really no other people really knew. So she was just kind of maybe going through some therapy too. So she was talking about therapy and all this stuff, and I'm going, whew, that was a loaded question. And so I got a little quiet because the one behind her was like, "Just say no." Just say no. And I'm going, oh, boy. No. So I said, "No, I don't think you're a controlling friend." But the way I wanted to answer it was a little bit differently, but with a very soft tone. But I didn't think it was a good place to answer it. So, I don't know where I was going with that. But, you don't want to hurt people's feelings, either. But you want to answer honestly.
Right.
So that's just me. That's a whole different little bit of a subject, but.
No, actually it's the same. I mean, like in my story, I personally would never have told her she looked terrible in a dress at a party. But if I was, if I was somewhere and somebody asked me a question and wanted a real answer personally, I would just say, "I'm not sure this is the appropriate place to have this conversation. Can we do this another time?"
Right.
Yeah, I think but when someone takes you by surprise, I've sort of learned whenever people talk to me now about anything, I sort of just listen and then I pause before I speak because I've done, I've said things too. I wish I hadn't.
I know, and I'm kind of a direct person, but I'm a Sagittarius, so I just can't help myself, and I've put my foot in my mouth many times. But and it's kind of like if you go to shopping with your girlfriends, when you're in an area, and then they say, "Well, does this look okay?" Well, we're going to tell them yes or no. But then someone might say, "Well, no, that looks great," or.
Yeah, well, I guess, it just, again, depends on the circumstance. Like in my case, if I had been at this girl's house when she was getting dressed, I wouldn't have told her she didn't look good, but I would have said, "Oh, God, you look so fabulous in that blue dress. Why don't you wear that tonight?" I think it's very good to, just be careful with our words.
Absolutely.
But anyway, it looks like we've got some people. So I want to, Dina, thank you so much for calling in, and that was very interesting. Thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, sweetie. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, and my apologies, Dina, for not pronouncing your name correctly. Oh, great question, Alice. I have some comments from the chat room that I'd love to share. Of course, as always, every week you have a huge crowd sharing incredible conversations amongst themselves, driven by your provocative monologue. So, and of course, our callers as well. So I'd like to first share, Robin Rosenberg said that is regarding the "do I look fat in this dress?" That is when you smile and say, "Nope, you look fine, beautiful." And she says,
well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way. Thank you, Robin.
And she says, "Better to lie and let her enjoy her night." And then Shelley Lundquist says a wonderful addition to that. And it's, of course, coming from Shelley, so it's wonderful. And she says, "Isn't truth perception anyway?" And that's true.
Well, truth is obviously perception to some degree. I mean, two people could look at the same thing. We could look at a painting, you and I, Andy, and I could
Yes.
think it's horrid, and you could think it's beautiful. So
Right.
that's both our truth. But I think what we're talking about here is, when we know what the truth is and we choose to lie. That's different. That's, a decided choice to lie,
Right.
rather than, perception is a fabulous subject, but it's a little different than what I'm talking about. Because you
Right, and
know what you ate for dinner. You ate steak. So if you say it's chicken, that's not your perception. I guess unless you can't see, that's what it tastes like to you.
or what cookies? I don't know what you're talking about as I wipe the
Oh,
crumbs
yeah,
from my
what
mouth.
cookie? Yeah, I do that one. I eat those cookies.
which ties into Tom Lyons' comment, perhaps people lie to avoid conflict.
Well, it's interesting because obviously as I was writing my monologue for tonight, so many things came. I could have just spoken for an hour about this, but I think that absolutely that's where most, people that are healthy, not the psycho, the pathologicals and the compulsives, but where most lying, I think, occurs is when someone's afraid of getting caught, or they're afraid of conflict, they're afraid of, creating an argument, a disagreement. I absolutely think that is where most lies come from. In relationships, look, when we're all kids, every time we broke something, we didn't want to get caught or sneaking out the window. So I absolutely believe that is, conflict in many areas. The big, why we do lie so much as humans.
Right, and then before I bring in our next caller, Alice, I'd like to take one more question from our chat room, and it's Jessica, I believe, the matron of books. Now, what if someone asks you a question where the answer might be something you don't think they can handle at the moment? Is it okay to lie then?
Well, I am certainly not a person who is going to tell anyone what is okay not to do or what to do. That's sort of the purpose of my monologue, that we choose. And if we choose to lie and we take ownership for that choice, then, I think that's more important. Like, if in this case, it sounds like the person can't handle it, so you're going to create God knows what for them, some kind of meltdown or breakdown, then you can choose to lie, but you know it. I probably, if I really thought that I was going to say something to someone that they couldn't handle, if I knew, I don't know, let's just take my girlfriend's husband's cheating on her, and I see him with someone, and I know if I tell her, she'll, stab herself. I probably would say nothing at all. I would probably, I try really hard not to lie. I try to say, I'm not comfortable answering that question or something like that, to try to get out of answering the question and staying away from that altogether.
Yeah. That sounds very safe. Okay, Alice, we have a next caller, and it's Janet from Claremont.
Well, hi, Janet from Claremont. How are you this evening?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm great. Loving that accent.
Thank you. I love this topic. And I think, I really do think everyone can relate to all the different facets of untruths you talked about. Like, he's retired now, but I worked with a pathological liar. God bless him. Lying was just like breathing to him. I don't know how many times his grandmother died at work in his 30-some years there. I don't know. And it was just like his dad was that way too, so I think that's where he learned it.
Now, is he compulsive or pathological? You could tell a pathological from a compulsive because they also have other characteristics.
I think it's more compulsive Because
Right.
he's a sweet, sweet person. I love him to death, but, I mean, you never can take what he says serious because he lies so much.
Yeah, that's how they are. I mean, it's a very sad condition. It is hard.
Is.
Yep.
And it's as
very
natural
sad.
to him as breathing. It's as natural to him as breathing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very wounded person. I think to become a habitual compulsive liar, I think they've been through some stuff, and it doesn't excuse it. And I personally would not want someone like that in my life. But at least I understand that, and hopefully they would get help, but they would need some big help to overcome that one.
He's retired. He is retired now. If he ain't got help by now, I don't think he ever will.
No, I guess at that age, you're probably right.
But then on the flip side, I'm like you. I like to try to tell the truth, but there are times where, to protect, you don't. You have to lie, And I know personally, my grandfather had Alzheimer's disease, and we knew something was wrong with him, and he had always said, that if he ever had a debilitating disease, he would kill himself, and he was serious. And me and my grandmother had to make the decision to not let him know what was wrong with him.
Yes.
Be dishonest. But in the long run, it was to protect him, and he was happy till the end. He never knew.
That's right.
So
I mean, you're making my point for me.
There's so many different facets to this.
Well, there are. That's why I thought it was such an interesting topic, when I started thinking about it. And actually what made me even think about this is I just, a couple of years ago or something, I had lied about my age a couple of years, and I had gone out with this guy, and I think on the second or third date, we really liked each other, so I told him the truth.
Yeah.
And you know what he said to me? It was crazy. He didn't care, that I was 2 years or 3 years older. What he cared about was that I lied. He said, "Oh, I can't trust anything you say if you would lie about that." And I just thought, wow, that's crazy.
That's hard.
That's a little nuts, because it's hard to believe, again, that he's never exaggerated a story. So that's like sort of, I remembered all that, and that's where I kind of came up with this, we have to decide where's the line we draw where we cannot trust a person. What is it that they can do that now it's a deal breaker, right?
And I like a lady I worked with, she got this hairstyle that really wasn't flattering, and she would say, well, "How does this look?" I'd say, "Oh, that's a nice length, that's a nice color." I'd never tell her it looked bad, but I did never actually have to come out and say, "Oh, it's gorgeous and it's so flattering."
Well, that's true. I mean, it is true that we try very hard not to lie. So when possible, we'll do that sort of thing. And that's kind of funny because it does feel uncomfortable. So
it does. Oh.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I once or twice I told a small lie like in front of like a lot of people, and I just like beat myself up for weeks. Like instead of saying I don't feel like answering that question, because I didn't feel like answering the question, right?
It's hard when you're put on the spot, though. It's hard because it puts you on the spot, and it's hard to do what you would normally do. And that's good advice to just step back before you speak because that gives you time to collect yourself.
Yeah, I think, and in the particular case I'm thinking of, which is, like 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was that moment, I think, when I learned that you just pause and collect yourself. You don't have to answer somebody immediately about anything. And I think I would have then said, I would like to decline to answer that question right now. Right.
I know.
Yeah. So that's great. I'm glad that your pathological liar didn't sucker you into anything. You didn't buy any bridges from him?
No, I learned real quick about him. Yeah, one year for a gag gift, we actually gave him the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
What did you give him?
The video Liar Liar.
Oh, that
with Jim Carrey.
I'm curious about something. Did he know he was a liar?
I think he knew he was. He didn't. He would get mad when he would get caught.
But he would get mad, but admit it.
No, he'd never admit it. He was this is what was fascinating about him. You could ask him a yes or no question, and he would go around the mulberry bush to Grandma's house and back again, and never give you an answer.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of a compulsive and pathological. They're stuck in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Janet. Thank you so much for calling in. It was great hearing
pleasure.
Your voice. And
it was great hearing yours.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Definitely.
All right, you have a great stay with us and listen to the rest of the show.
Oh, I love your show, definitely.
Oh, thanks, Janet. Okay.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
You know, Alice, that's great. I love the Southern accent because when they say bless their heart, you know, it just sounds so much nicer than what we say up here in the Northeast.
What do we say?
I can't say on the air.
Oh. Oh. That's cute.
You know, bless his heart. You know, everybody listening knows what I'm talking about. It's really
because when somebody does something bad, she's compassionate. Bless their heart, and we would
bless their heart.
Yeah.
Well,
Boston and New Yorkers.
Well, you know, and I knew you were talking about this topic. I wanted to look into the business side of white lies. And I found something on Forbes magazine, and it said social lies are the lubricant of workplace relationships. We couldn't survive in business or, frankly, in society without them. With social or white lies, there is an implicit deal struck between the liar and the liee. You won't tell me the unvarnished truth, and I won't scrutinize everything you say.
Wow.
I thought
that's very interesting. So I guess society is kind of coming along with that not all lies are make us bad and evil. And, you know, that's interesting, Andy, because I bet people in relationships, whether it's, you know, when I say relationships, all relationships, but I bet they kind of strike those deals too unconsciously, right?
Yeah, I absolutely.
I think they do. Yeah.
And unless it's spinach on my teeth, then you best not be lying.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's so funny because, you know, when I put the name of the monologue is Do I Look Fat in the Dress, you know, who knew where I was going with that, I'm sure. But it kind of reminded me of, you know, I've seen this on TV and in commercials, and it's so funny how many women will say that to their men. And what's the guy supposed to say? So to me, that's like a contract that we have. Whenever a woman asks a man if she looks good, his job is to say, "You look beautiful, honey," you know, whether he thinks so or not. Like,
exactly.
But we're right. I think that's just the way it is, and I don't think the woman wants to hear anything else, or she wouldn't have asked. So.
Well, and I think it brings up a really good point here that Tom makes, is that too is if you feel that someone has lied to you about something, do you confront that person about it, or do you simply let it go and move on from there, or does it really depend on the extent of the lie?
Well, I think for me, again, everybody has to do what's comfortable for them. I think for me, it would depend on the situation and the lie. Certainly, I mean, I can't think of anything, but typically I would confront someone with something big if I was dating someone and they lied to me, like a big lie about anything, like I'm working this weekend, I can't see you, and then I found out that they went away for the weekend with their friends, I would totally confront them. Why would he tell me he's working instead of he's going out with his friends? with my daughter and relationships. But I think that if I thought about why they lied, and if a person would tell me a lie because they were embarrassed about something, I probably would let it go and just, not think about it. So I think, again, we all have to make that decision. If somebody lies to us and we think we can let it go, but we really feel resentful, then clearly we have to confront them. Then clearly we can't let it go. I think that's a really good telltale sign of what to do.
Right. And I also like Laura's comment, Alice, which says sometimes I think people lie because they think they are protecting others.
Oh, I am sure that is true.
Yeah.
And, there's a great line that says, I don't exactly know how it says, but like, don't think for me. Someone will say, don't decide for me or think for me. And I think that's true. Even if somebody thinks they're protecting me by not telling me something, I'd rather them not say anything at all than lie. Right. I mean, we have a lot of examples of that, like the husband cheating on the wife. I would say nothing at all rather than lie to protect her, because those are big things. But yeah, I think people do that all the time.
But then, especially if you've known someone for years, whether it's a parent or a sibling or a partner, spouse, how about the lies of exaggeration? That fish started off, it was this big, and by, 20 years down the road, the fish was bigger than the house. Some people lie to exaggerate, maybe to make the story funny, but it can still feel off-putting. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess it's not a lie because everybody knows I do it and it's so ridiculous, but I might say to someone, oh, wow, I had to do that like a zillion times to get it right. That's an exaggeration that no one's going to believe. But I don't know that again, it depends. I don't know that I would find it off-putting if somebody said, oh, I caught a fish this big, and I knew they didn't. I'd probably laugh at them and call them on it. But I think that happens all the time.
Oh, yeah, embellishing. Oh, I can do that, no problem. And, of course, then all of a sudden they're in you've hired them to do that, and they can't do it at all.
Yeah, well, that's a problem. I find a really big one, too, is that people are so afraid, and I don't know why this is, to just say, I don't know. So somebody will ask you, especially like at work or a friend, so you'll ask someone a question, and rather than say, I don't know, they'll just say anything, which is clearly a lie because they don't know. And that's another one I notice a lot in the world. Like, why can't you just say, I don't know, I'll go find that out for you? But there's there's so many different types of lies. It's quite insane.
And it can go on forever. And I do like, the fact that some people might want to protect you with a lie, but that doesn't help. And then, of course, there's the destructive lies that poison, whether it's the workplace, the relationships, the neighborhood. And I think that's what Alana was talking about, for those people who feel the need to be just so mean.
Well, I also, it's true. There are lies that I would never tell, and there are lies that never need to be told to me, but that I would excuse. I would have a conversation with the person, ask them why they felt the need to lie to me, and then if they did it again, well, now we're in trouble. But like deception and plagiarism, to me, stealing is stealing. There are certain things, but I mean, we've all been lied to at some point. I had a boyfriend, and for some reason, his past girlfriend didn't like when he went out with his friends after work, so he just assumed I wouldn't instead of asking me. And one night he told me he had to work late, and I found out he went out with his friends. And so I told him, you don't have to lie to me about that or anything else. Just tell me. It's cool. So he didn't know, so I forgave that. And I think it is, though, there are there are things that are hard to ever trust a human being again. I mean, obviously.
Right. I mean, read my lips.
The real deal breakers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the politicians. I mean, Jessica in the chat room is talking about would we like it if politicians told us the truth?
Probably not, actually. I think there are some things we probably would rather not know.
Right.
You know what? If nobody minds, I think that I would like to change the conversation a little bit. This has been fun, but I like to talk about a couple of different things. And I do want to remind everybody that anyone at any time can bring up anything they want. I don't need to be the only topic changer. But something else that I was thinking about, I'm always thinking about something. But just in talking to a friend, this was a problem she has, so it was a topic I thought would be interesting to talk about, and that's what I call limiting beliefs. And I might have mentioned this a little bit on a previous show, but what a limiting belief is, it's the stories that we tell ourselves that stop us from being in the world happy and productive. So I'll give you some examples. Maybe you've decided that you're ugly, so you don't bother taking care of yourself. You never get a nice haircut. You never get nice clothes. You kind of hide in the shadows, hoping no one will ever see you. Or maybe you're single, and you believe in your heart that you will never find love. So now you're not open to any possibilities. You're going to miss the man or woman that's looking at you in the grocery store, and you're certainly not going to proactively look. Even perhaps you're a great writer, but you know in your heart you'll never get published, so you don't even try. These are stories we tell ourselves. They feel like the truth to us, but they are not the truth. And this is kind of where maybe what Shelley said about perception, this kind of goes into that. So it's our perception of ourselves, but it's not the truth. So I think that it's really a great idea for all of us to take a look at what stops us from having what we want. You could write down, here's what I want, here's what I want, here's what I want. Not being a brain surgeon, at 80 or something, but, really. And change your story. Just change your story. If you think you're ugly, go out, buy yourself some beautiful clothes that you feel awesome in, get a great haircut, get out in the world, and you'll see you're not ugly at all. And if you think you can't find love, then just decide in your heart that you can and put yourself places where that is. So it's really about choosing to change our stories, and then we have to get out of our comfort zone to do that. Then we have to get out in the world. We have to feel the feeling and just do it. But in time, when you just do it and do it and do it, it's interesting what happens because your confidence grows. You grow as a person. And, really, let's go with Nike. Just do it. Just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Stop it. I always say that. I'll say that to someone. They'll be telling me something. I go, oh, my gosh, that is such a limiting belief. Stop it. Like, what do you mean stop it? I said, just stop it. Just choose not to think that way. It's crazy.
I had a limiting belief when I turned 50. I thought, oh, that's it. Time to done. Can't do any more entrepreneurial adventures. No more businesses. I'm 50. That's a younger person's game. And I sat there for a day or two pretty depressed. I'm 50 now. Can't do any of that. And then I looked around and I saw a lot of people pursuing their dreams, moving right along in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s. Louise Hay said, this decade, my 80th year here, is my best decade ever. And I thought, well, shoot, now that is a limiting belief I have. That's a story I'm telling myself that's not true.
And, Andy, you make such a good point, because the truth is that whenever something comes up for us, for sure, if I decide well, I can't exercise. You know what? I'm not fit enough. I'm not strong enough. Well, right off the bat, I have to say, well, that's a limiting belief. Anybody can exercise. You can just take a walk around the block. So I think whenever we start saying anything, I can't, right away I would start looking at that. And again, we're not talking about ridiculous things like me starting, I could go back to school to become a brain surgeon, I suppose. But, if you have a 90 IQ, obviously you can't. But within the realm of real life, I don't think I ever meet anyone who doesn't have limiting beliefs, and some people have so many. And then there's just no hope for happiness and joy and passion.
Right. I'd ask folks to call in and say, have you ever been told that you were stupid or an idiot, and did that become a limiting belief for you?
Well, of course it would if they're told it enough. If somebody told me that right now, I would say, really? Let's go both take an IQ test and see what comes out of that. But I think that the issue is where these things come from, where the stories come from, where the wounds come from, where all the things we're coming from is from just hearing things over and over again. Typically, it starts when we're young, from our environment. Unfortunately, a lot of people grow up in very dysfunctional homes. They hear things, and that becomes their story. That's what they believe about themselves. Or a teacher might even, somebody might have dyslexia. Maybe they don't figure out until they're in the 7th grade. So what's that child been told all their life? So and actually my daughter had a friend like that. It took maybe 5th grade, they figured out that he had dyslexia. And this kid, who was so sad, they became friends at about 13, and he would come over, and he would tell me all the time how stupid he was. And I taught him how to play Texas Hold'em, which is a very difficult poker game. And he was beyond brilliant at it. But he thought he couldn't go to college. He thought no matter what I said to him, because it was so ingrained in his head from his parents, from his teachers. And that story actually had a very sad ending, so we don't need to.
Oh, okay, but still, I can see you teaching someone how to play Texas Hold'em. I love that, Alice.
Yeah, I love Texas Hold'em. Great mind game. Great challenge. And Andy, you can see me in my cowboy hat and my cigar. No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely. And the way you hold cards, I'm sure it's a sight to behold.
It's fun.
Well, and folks in the chat room, they're adding comments to this because, for example, Jessica says, how many people have the ghost of a relative in their head saying negative things, even if that relative has been gone for years, right?
Well, Jessica, I forgot to send you that meditation. It's going out to you tomorrow because Jessica has made a couple of comments in the past few shows that there is a relative in her past that is in her head, and I want to help her get rid of it. There is, and it's obvious because there's a theme here with Jessica.
Right.
So, Jessica, I am going to send you that. I'll private message you. We'll have a little chat, you and I, see if I can't just send you this phenomenal meditation I did that released a lot of negative things for me in the past, So
that's wonderful. And then Tom shares that he had a teacher who used to call everyone a moron all the time.
Oh.
So at least, Tom, you weren't singled out, but the only moron. But the day she decided to call me a moron, I gave her a good piece of my mind in front of her class and fixed her wagon.
Well, you know what? I love that because you know what that proves about Tom? He had no limiting belief around that. He knew he was a smart kid, really. And I'm shocked that nobody, sort of told anybody about that teacher. That's just horrible. But, that does go on in our schools all the time.
Sure.
I know. It's so sad to me. I mean,
well, yeah, and it happened with my son. He was kept into, the level 3, the bottom of the class, all the way through middle school, and then into high school. He said, I've had enough. And he went down to guidance, a freshman, and, big high school, and marched down and said, I'm changing out of all these classes. I'm putting myself in all level ones. And he did it.
Good for him. Well, then he had a good role model for parents,
Well,
obviously.
Geez. He came home and said, here, Mom, sign this. But, I mean, it's what can happen to kids in our public school system, too. People will put them into a category that is not right for them.
Well, all sorts of things happen. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. People talk a lot about, nurture, nature, all of that, and children. And we can't blame everything on parents. People are out in the world. And somebody could have parents that are so loving and so supporting and always have their back. And they have one teacher who every single day tells them something negative. That's going to get ingrained in their head. Or somebody bullies them every single day at school. That's going to get ingrained in their head. So we can never protect our children fully. And it's why there are so many wounded people. In fact, one of the topics I have planned is the name of it is going to be called "Are We All the Walking Wounded?" Because we are. We are all the walking wounded. Something has happened, or many things have happened to every human walking the earth. But the good news is we've got Shelley on and Ande and me. There is so much proof that you don't have to stay there. Right, Ande?
Right. That absolutely. But it does take time. It can take time, and if you're very sensitive or highly empathic, it can be hard. Or as Shelley said in the chat room, she had to deal with the fact that one of her old friends told her that she had an abnormally small head and it must look really funny when it's wet.
Oh, gosh.
Oh.
What is wrong with people? Don't they realize? Her friend was probably thinking she was funny. No, her and maybe she didn't even mean it, because it just reminded me of this one job I had. I was in my 20s, and there was one of the guys that worked there had like this big crush on me, which you think would be great. But you know what he said to me? He said, women usually have like such tiny little heads, and what I love about you is that yours is like big. And oh my goodness, that like affected me for like a year. I'm looking in the mirror and I go, okay, how come I don't see it? But I have this big fat head. So I don't know that he didn't mean it. I don't know what he meant. I never went out with him, obviously. But yeah, I was affected I was in my 20s and I was like so self-conscious about my head. So I get it, but that didn't stick with me very long. It's so weird the people things say and how much even one person can affect us negatively. It's crazy. Right. But yet somebody could say something lovely to you 10 times and you won't take that in. I mean, it's unfortunate that negative stuff that comes at us affects us so much stronger, which is why my last week, memories in a jar and thinking about nice things, why I think it's like so important that we make it a habit, like just do it every day to look for things to be happy about. Just look. Look for the flower growing in the middle of the field. Look for the mother holding her baby with love. Look for anything,
Right.
And Robin, look at chocolate cake every day. I mean, whatever. I think when I go through a day, like even today it rained. I think it rained all over the world. My friends all over the world, it rained. Even today it rained all day. And I don't know, I'm in my house. I ran out to run a few errands. I saw a number of things. That made me smile. Because I'm really looking for them. I want them. I want to feel good. So I think that really, everybody listening, I want you to do that for me. Homework.
Perfect homework. And I also think Robin's comment, too, in the chat room, Alice, that we often live in our past way too much. Hey, look, we're not going that way, right? We're going forward. So I think, Robin, that was a great point. What do you think, Alice?
It's an amazing point. And, part of that we're so wounded is because we are living in the past, because we cannot let go of the past. We really can't. And I have to say that when I was able to do that, and that took me a while because there's a lot of different things you have to get, let go of. There's a million things that happen. But I almost never think about my past. I mean, somebody will bring it up, and I'll think about an old boyfriend or an event, or somebody will bring something up, and I do. But through my everyday life, I just don't. I'm living in the now. And when you live in the now, being responsible, obviously, for the future, it is an unbelievable place to live. So that is beautiful.
Well, I think it takes, and I think it takes courage. And we have Deborah Oakland, in the chat room tonight, and
we
she
do, Deborah and Shelley. Whoa.
Woo! And she says, happiness is everywhere. Surrounding ourselves with positive people makes all the difference.
That's another one. I don't have any negative people in my life. None. I through the years, I've had to break up with friends, which is very devastating. And I actually was very honest with them about it. It's a little different. Like if you have a friend who's going through something and it's difficult, as long as they're not draining you. But people that were negative, people that complain a lot, people that weren't happy, I realized I could not have them in my life and do the work I do for myself and be the person I want to be in my world. And that's tough. I don't have any friends anymore. No, I'm kidding. But I do. I have really amazing friends now. Less, but amazing. And so thank you, Deborah, for that. I think we need to be surrounded by positivity everywhere as much as possible.
Right. And
we've got to make it happen.
And Tom and Jessica add to that comment too. Living in the past is too destructive. It kills you little by little.
Oh, I love that. Tom, that's a great quote. I want to see that on your Facebook page tomorrow. What a fabulous quote. Isn't that? Living in the past is too destructive. It kills you little by little. That is absolutely phenomenal. Love that, Tom. Thank you.
We were talking about limiting beliefs. I don't know if folks here watch The Voice, but Allison and I, we're huge Voice fans. And I don't know if you caught Pharrell saying this the other night, but he said to one of the contestants, do not let perfection be the veil between you and opportunity. And I thought, wow, perfection is another limiting belief that we can keep ourselves from going, forward in.
And perfection, I think I posted about that last week on Facebook. What perfection does to people is it makes them look at the world around them and try to compete in the world. It's like a myth. It's like, I don't even like that word. I don't even know what it means, quite frankly. So I love that because it's not about that. What it's about is looking at yourself and working on being the best and the happiest and whatever you want to be. And just every day you compare yourself to yourself. How am I better today? Did I work on that thing? Did I find 3 things to be joyful about today? Maybe tomorrow I'll pick 4. Yes. God, I love The Voice. I can't believe that came up. Me and Andy, actually, this is funny because obviously we both figured out we're the best of friends. Lucky me to have her be so brilliant. Andy, my best friend. But we'll, on Voice Night, oh my God, did you hear so-and-so? It's really funny. We're texting each other back and forth. Love it. That is why we didn't pick Monday and Tuesday nights to do this show.
There we go.
So any other great comments? I love the chat room.
Oh,
love
it's
our
wonderful.
chatters.
And they always add value. Really, Alice, you have such a wonderful group of folks who tune in either through the phone or in the chat room, and they bring so much awareness to each other. Deborah says, you gals are all positive. My day is always blissed out when I connect with you. Other comments are, we're all imperfectly perfect just the way we are. This group gets deep into the topics, but sometimes it's a light and uplifting, let's eat cake type of conversation, and it's wonderful.
Do you want to give us maybe a couple of last comments before we wrap up?
Absolutely. You know, Robin is one that I really want us to hold and take with us tonight, which is, it is better to have a handful of flowers than a basket of rocks.
Oh, that's another beautiful quote. Do these people read these somewhere, or they're just coming out of their beautiful mouths? Just like, what? Oh, Robin, thank you. I hope everybody else really heard that.
Yeah.
You know, right. It's better to have less. That's wonderful than more. I think that's what I heard. Mm-hmm. And we live in a society where we think more is better. More clothes, more shoes, more food, more money. But it is better to have less and for it to be beautiful than to have more and for it to be rocks. Thank you so much for that, Robin.
Well, and it felt, too, like it was lighter, Alice. You know, the handful of flowers feels so light, whereas the rocks feel so heavy.
That is so true. I mean, on so many levels, you're right. That's a beautiful comment on so many levels. I think that is a great comment to go out with. What about you, Ande? Anything else to add before we say our goodbyes?
As always, it's an honor and pure pleasure to share space and time with you and your wonderful audience. I am in awe of the callers, of the folks engaging in the chat room, folks who are in the Facebook group. Really, you are all adding value to lives. It's a ripple effect because a lot of people listen to the archive of this show. And so your comments are really helping people around the world.
Thank you. And everybody else is, I mean,
right.
Unless you were talking about them. I mean, the chat room, some of the stuff comes out brilliant. Yeah. Oh, and our callers. I just love our audience. Ande and I, just real quick, we're talking about that it's sort of a shame, like we can get the callers obviously on tape, but that the chat room, we can't video it, that we can't save that somehow and turn that into a book or something. So anyway.
Alice, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Your music, the person who wrote the music for your intros and outros, that's amazing. How did you get
that? I was actually, sometimes Eli actually listens in. He's in the UK, so it's late at night there. But I really would, thank you, Ande, I really would like to mention on the air Eli Cameron. He is an amazing composer. And I could have bought stock music that this man created just for the show, the music you hear coming in and going out. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I love it. And Eli, when you listen to this replay, I'm sending you so many kisses. I really love it. So thank you for the reminder, Ande.
Aww.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you. Okay, well, I thought this was another great show. I certainly had a lot of fun, and I really do want to thank all of you who listened in and all of you who participated. We certainly can't do this show without you guys, and I do know that you could have been anywhere tonight. So again, I thank you for choosing to be with me. I really, really, really appreciate each and every one of you. And so I hope I see you all next week. And until then, I want to wish for all of us a week filled with many, many joyful moments.
Thank you for tuning in to another lively conversation on the Ask Alice Show. Alice loves to connect with her listeners, so please join the Ask Alice Show Facebook group, where you can keep the conversation going and pose questions for future shows. And be sure to stay tuned in to the show by clicking the follow button right here on Blog Talk Radio, and by subscribing to the Ask Alice Show YouTube channel. If you have a high-quality product or service you'd like to advertise with the Ask Alice Show audience, please email Alice's assistant, Rachel, at info@AskAliceShow.com. Until next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, keep asking those questions.